Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive.
Mm,
Today, we're going to be looking at something pretty cool, something pretty wild, and that is,
robots
yeah, robots.
with ChatGPT
That's right.
integrated.
We've all heard about ChatGPT by now. I
Yeah.
think we're very familiar with it.
Right.
Um, but what happens when you take that and you stick it
Fine robot.
in a robot and you give it a body?
Exactly.
Can it use that to navigate and even kind of survive in the real world? We've got some research and even a real-world experiment from a YouTuber named Nicodem Bartnik. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
I believe so.
And he has a YouTube channel called Le Podcast de Philippe.
Hmm.
And it's really fascinating to see what he was able to pull off.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
So let's dive in.
So traditionally, robots are programmed
Right.
with very specific instructions, like step-by-step guides for every single task.
Yeah.
But integrating a large language model like ChatGPT allows them to process information, make decisions, and adapt to new situations in a way that we just couldn't do before.
So Nicodem, he gave his robot this goal to explore and survive using ChatGPT. And he didn't give it, like you said, pre-programmed movements. He didn't say like, okay, if you see this, do that. If you see this, do that.
Right.
It's he equipped it with a camera, a microphone, and he gave it a little robotic chassis.
Controlled by a Raspberry Pi.
Oh, Raspberry Pi. It's like a little mini computer,
Absolutely.
and it sends images to ChatGPT, which then analyzes the scene and provides instructions on how to move and how to interact
Based on what it sees.
based on what it sees.
Like a robot seeing for the first time, really.
It really is, and it's wild because, like, there were some really surprising moments in the experiment.
Like when it complained about the microphone being off.
Yeah.
And it said Nicodem forgot to turn it on and called his desk cluttered,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty funny.
I thought that was so funny, and it really shows how ChatGPT is able to go beyond just, like, basic commands and instructions.
It's forming its own opinions and expressing them,
Right? It's like,
which is fascinating and a little unnerving. Right.
yeah, but what makes you wonder, like, is this a personality? Is this some sort of consciousness?
Well, maybe not consciousness, but definitely getting closer to something resembling it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it shows that maybe robots can start interacting with humans on a more nuanced level, on a more engaging level.
Absolutely.
So one of the challenges that Nicodem talks about in his video is getting this robot to actually understand its surroundings and navigate effectively. And he mentions this term, world models.
Yeah, so a world model is basically like a mental map that the AI creates to represent its understanding of the physical world.
Okay.
So it includes objects, their relationships, and how they behave.
So it's like it's building its own little simulation of reality.
Yeah, exactly.
In its mind.
In its mind, and then it can plan actions, and it can predict what's going to happen, and even adapt to changes based on that world model.
So instead of just reacting to what's right in front of it,
Right.
it can kind of think ahead.
Yeah, like if a robot's navigating a room, it can use its world model to understand the layout of the room, where the obstacles are, and the paths it can take.
Right. So it's not just like bumping into things.
Exactly.
It's actually thinking, okay, where do I want to go? How do I get there?
It's a big step toward true autonomy.
Right.
Robots that can think for themselves, basically.
Yeah, and not need that constant hand-holding
Right, precisely.
from a human.
We're seeing researchers developing more sophisticated world models, and the AI systems are getting better at learning from experience and refining their understanding of the world.
And so in the video, he did run into some limitations with the robot's spatial reasoning.
Yeah, that's a pretty common challenge in robotics because translating what a camera sees into a 3D understanding of space is really, really hard.
Yeah.
It requires complex algorithms to interpret depth, distance, and relationships between objects.
Yeah, it's funny how these things that seem so simple to us
Right.
are so incredibly difficult for robots to master.
It really highlights the amazing complexity of the human brain and our perception and cognition. Like, we take for granted our ability to just walk around a room and not bump into things.
Well, yeah.
You know, millions of years of evolution have given us this very sophisticated neural network that lets us do that.
That robots just don't have yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it makes you appreciate the power of the human brain even more.
It really does.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Right. But even with these limitations that we talked about, like the spatial reasoning,
Yeah.
the progress that's being made with ChatGPT and robotics is incredible.
Oh, it's absolutely incredible. And we're not just talking about like ground-based robots.
Right.
We're talking about robots that can fly too, like
Oh,
drones.
yeah.
ChatGPT has been used to actually control drones.
What?
Yeah, it can generate complex code for tasks like flying in specific patterns, avoiding obstacles, even taking selfies.
So you're telling me instead of needing a programmer to like write out all this complicated code
Right.
to get a drone to do something, you can just say, hey, ChatGPT,
You just tell it
I want
what you want it to do in plain English,
fly over there, take a picture of that, come back.
and it'll do
And
it.
it'll translate it into code.
Exactly.
That's mind-blowing.
It's pretty crazy. It opens up a ton of possibilities in all sorts of industries.
Oh, yeah. Think
Like
so.
package delivery, agriculture, filmmaking.
Yeah, we're not too far off from seeing like Amazon packages being delivered by drones.
Absolutely. Controlled by ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's wild. And, you know, in Nicodem's video, he even programmed the robot to react to like a perceived threat.
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
When he approached the robot aggressively, it tried to escape.
It backed away and made this noise like it was scared.
Right.
It was pretty cool to see ChatGPT giving these robots the ability to exhibit these really complex behaviors.
Right. It wasn't just, you know, do this, do that.
Right.
It was like, oh, there's danger. I need to get out of here.
Exactly. Like a basic survival instinct.
Yeah, almost like, what did you call that? Self-preservation.
Yeah, I mean, it's blurring the line between programming and something more like instinct.
Right.
It's fascinating. And I think, this was a really simple setup that Nicodem had.
Yep.
What happens when you give ChatGPT control of like a really advanced robot?
Like one of those humanoid robots?
Yeah, like those ones that are designed to interact with us.
Right.
Imagine that robot understanding your commands, but also reading your facial expressions, your body language,
Wow.
and even understanding your emotions.
That's a whole other level.
Yeah, and you can think about how much that would revolutionize things like healthcare,
Healthcare, yeah.
elder care, education. You could have robots assisting doctors and nurses, providing companionship to older people, even tutoring kids.
It's crazy. The possibilities are endless.
They really are. We're just scratching the surface.
But it's important to consider the ethical implications as well, right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
as we give these robots more autonomy and more intelligence.
You need to make sure they're not going to turn on us, right?
Right, exactly. And, there need to be guidelines in place.
We need guidelines. We need regulations.
Yeah, for how they're developed and how they're used.
And we need to make sure they're aligned with human values.
Right, and they don't pose a threat to society.
Yeah, we need to have those conversations now and then involve experts from different fields.
Yeah.
Technology, ethics, law, all these different perspectives.
It can't just be the tech people making all the decisions.
Exactly. We need to be proactive and make sure this technology actually benefits humanity.
I think that's a great point. And, in the podcast de Philip video, Nicodem talks about how important the prompts are that he gave to ChatGPT.
Right.
He said that even a slight change in the wording
Yeah.
could significantly change the robot's behavior.
It's incredible, right? It really highlights the power of language.
Yeah, so it's not just about developing the tech.
It's about knowing how to use it, how to talk to it, how to guide it.
We're going to be the ones shaping these robots' behaviors.
It's a partnership between humans and machines. It's a team effort.
Absolutely. And that communication has to be crystal clear. We need to know the technology's limits.
Yeah.
And we need to plan carefully.
Okay, well, this has been an amazing conversation.
Oh, it's been fascinating.
It really has. A fascinating dive into the world of robots powered by ChatGPT.
Absolutely.
So something else that I thought was really interesting in Nicodem's video was that the robot didn't seem to have much memory of past actions.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Like, even if it had encountered a particular object before.
It would forget.
Yeah, it needed like a visual cue to remember where it was.
Yeah, it's like it had amnesia almost.
Right, and I feel like that's a pretty big hurdle for robots to overcome if they're really going to be able to, like, learn and adapt.
It's a huge area of research right now, developing AI with more robust memory.
Yeah.
Current AI models, as amazing as they are, they really struggle to retain information for long periods.
Yeah, and I guess it makes sense because, like, they might be able to do one task really well.
Right.
But then you give them something new and they're like, they start from scratch.
Yeah, they forget everything they learned before.
Exactly. And so researchers are trying to figure out how to solve this problem.
Okay, so what are some of the approaches that they're taking?
Well, one is simply to develop AI models with way bigger memory capacities.
Okay, so just give them more storage space?
Yeah, basically, so they can hold on to more information.
Makes sense.
But it's not just about storage. It's also about how that information is organized
Right, okay.
and categorized so that it can be easily retrieved when it's needed.
So it's like giving AI a better filing system for all of his experiences.
Yeah, exactly. Like imagine a library with millions of books, but no catalog system.
That would be a nightmare.
It would be impossible to find anything.
Yeah, you'd be wandering around for hours.
And that's kind of what's happening with AI right now. It needs a way to index all that data so it can actually use it.
Okay, so that brings us back to this idea of embodiment that we touched on earlier.
Right, right.
Can you talk a bit more about that and how it relates to creating more advanced robots?
So embodiment basically means that intelligence isn't just about processing information.
Okay.
It's also about interacting with the physical world.
So it's not just thinking, it's also doing.
Exactly. It's about having a body and being able to experience the world through your senses.
And movements and actually interacting with things, not just observing.
Precisely, and that's how humans learn, right?
Kids are always catching things and putting things in their mouths and running around.
They're experimenting, making mistakes, and that's how they build their understanding of the world.
So robots need that too.
Yeah, they need to be able to learn from their physical experiences.
Like you can read all the books you want about swimming,
Right.
but until you get in the water.
You're not going to learn how to swim.
Exactly.
And it's the same with robots. They need to actually experience the world firsthand.
That's fascinating. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one big takeaway that you want our listeners to walk away with? What should they be thinking about when it comes to the future of robots and AI?
I think the big takeaway is that we're at a really exciting moment in history.
Okay.
AI is advancing at an incredible pace, and things like ChatGPT are opening up all these crazy possibilities in robotics.
Yeah.
But it's important that we're thoughtful about how we develop this technology.
Yeah, we need to be careful.
We need to have those tough conversations about the ethics of it all.
Absolutely.
Make sure that AI is used to benefit humanity, not harm it.
I think that's a great message to end on.
Yeah, I think so too.
So if you want to learn more about the experiment we talked about today,
Yeah.
and all the really cool stuff that Nicodem's doing with robots and ChatGPT,
Check out his YouTube channel.
definitely it's called Le Podcast de Philippe.
Help him reach 1,000 subscribers today.
Absolutely. And thanks everyone for joining us on the deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another exploration of the cutting edge of technology.